Hey everyone, Sunyveil here. Before we get started with FECast, episode 17, all about Echoes of Eternity leading up to the ECQ, I have a few things that I should probably mention before we get started. First off, my power went out in the middle of this, and it was up to the other people on the cast in order to finish it. They did an admirable job considering the circumstances, and I did record a little bit of commentary to help fill in a few things, but for the most part, this cast is mostly TempestDragonKing and TheBoxer. So a big shout out to those two for persevering despite unforeseen circumstances. Second, on a much happier note, we have patrons to thank for making help this episode possible. So major shout outs to Chrisier, D-Dub, and Yeast Out for generously donating at patreon.com/Friends of Eternal and helping make this episode possible. Alright, without any further ado, let's get started with episode 17 of FECast, all about the Echoes of Eternity ECQ. Hello everyone, and welcome to FECast, the official podcast of the Friends of Eternal. My name is Sunyveil, and today I am joined by three fellow members of the Discord, and we're going to be talking about the ECQ that is coming up this weekend, February 21st. That's less than 48 hours from the recording of this podcast. I have with me back-to-back top 8 competitor from Team Rankstar, TheBoxer. Welcome back on the show, TheBoxer. It's good to have you back.
Thanks, happy to be here.
I have the member that was on last week's show when we talked a lot about Echoes of Eternity. We have TempestDragonKing along for the ride.
Hello, I hope to be a top 8 finisher this time, but no promises.
Best of luck to you. And we have everyone's favorite, super opinionated member of the Eternal community, none other than the infamous IlyaK. It's good to have you back, Ilya.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I hope this time I'm not going to have to just, delete a bunch of the things that you say as in post-production. Crickets? No? Okay, I thought that was a funny joke. Okay, anyway, moving on. Well, this week's episode is going to be all about the ECQ that's coming up. We've got a Throne ECQ. It's going to be the 4th one of the season, qualifying for the Worlds 2020 that, well, I guess we don't actually know anything about Worlds 2020, but we know that, I'm going to try to get the names right. We have Bruised by God, Colacoma, Lights Out Ace, Meal 29, and I forget the last one, who won the Expedition Showdown. Editing Sunyveil here, and it was Notarg, besting Monero in the Expedition Showdown with Argenport in order to claim a spot at Worlds. And we'll be looking for a 6th player to join them at Worlds 2020. Echoes of Eternity just released a couple weeks ago, and it's having an impact on the metagame, I would say, although, well, I don't know, maybe not as big as it could have been, I guess, but trying to impact Throne is a tall order anyway, because you have to compete against all of the best cards in Eternal.
It was bigger than the last set for sure. Flames of Zolta. That deck didn't touch Throne that much. This set is doing a good job at shaking it up, making things faster. It feels like a powerful set.
Yeah, I guess I can't really think of anything from Even Illusion that comes from... Oh, we did have the emblems. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, the emblems are big.
The talk of the town right now is Even Illusion. I made a Reddit post talking about how I think this is the deck to beat, and the addition of Gentle Grazer to the deck has been big in increasing the deck's consistency and resilience against sweepers. But before we start talking about Even Illusion, let's talk about a deck that some of you guys think is the deck to beat, and that is the Carver decks. Kindling Carver is a 1-cost fire unit that's a 1/1. It says, exhaust to draw the top card of your deck, reduce its cost 1 by 1, and discard it at the end of the turn. And it's proved to be quite the value engine, and it has spawned its own archetypes.
Yep.
So let me start with you, TempestDragonKing. What do you think of these Carver decks?
All of them are very good. I think the variation that I talked about you with and that I posted is the best of the lot, but I'm not completely sure. I'm pretty sure, but not 100%. Anyways, the deck just cycles through itself at a ridiculous pace. As long as you have a dude, you can just sacrifice it.
Right, so you're talking about a wind chest build that has not just several copies of Carver, but also copies of Crownwatch Press Gang in order to go find the Carver with more consistency, right?
I was talking about all the variants with that statement, but we can hone in on the Winchester one.
Well, I know that another one of our guests has strong opinions on the matter. TheBoxer, tell us about why you like FJS Carver in particular.
Okay, so Carver is the best card in the stack. It's Stone Store Scrapper is a good card. That costs 6, and you had to sacrifice 2 units to draw 2 cards.
It cost 5.
Okay, well, it was a 6 drop. Like, you would play it out on turn 6, and it cost 5, and then you paid 1 to sacrifice 2 units, and you gained a bit of life. It had a bigger body, but this costs 1. You can just play it out, sacrifice something, draw a card, and this is your draw engine, and it can be got with Crownwatch Press Gang, and you can lower your curve to have a max of 4 and still have this incredibly grindy deck. But to focus in on the differences, I like Press Gang. I think I've loved it in this deck. I also like Display of Ambition because it gets you back your Carvers. More Carver consistency is why I like the deck.
That is a powerful reason to like the deck. Display of Ambition and Crownwatch Press Gang seem very good there. However, I prefer the FTS version. There's a few reasons why. First of all, there's more than Carver that keeps the deck running. There's also Kato. Kato's ridiculous.
Kato is the 5-cost legendary card from the new set, right? It has double of each faction requirement?
No,
Now presenting!
Yes, that guy. He's the 2-mana 2/1 in single fire.
Wait, but you play that deck. You played that card in the Winchester version anyway, right?
Yes, he's even better here. Do you know he's a cultist?
Yes, somehow, yes.
He can, if he hits the enemy player, he gets to play Arc of Soul. He comes with a free Totemite to sack. That's just free real estate. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. He's a 2-drop for Machinations. Display of Destruction can ramp you into stupid, crazy things like Strange Burglar and immediately sacking another dude to draw 3 cards. Profane Nexus is another wild sack outlet.
I guess maybe I'll let you finish, but I know on that card I do want to argue back a bit.
You can argue about Profane Nexus. It's very good in the deck, but I can have a debate about it.
I agree it does powerful things. The first deck I tried FTS. I played it for a while. Nexus it can be hard to protect, and even though it's a 4-drop, you're not always able to play it. It's flimsier than it looks, and unlike some sites, if you get its agenda, its full agenda, it's not always doing it. Obrak is not that big of a deal. I know that's not why you play it, but I know it's helped me close out games. It does powerful stuff in the late game, but it's not always able to be played on turn 4, and it makes your Carver hits worse. Carving into it, you don't always want to. You can't always play it.
For the record, I'm with TheBoxer on this one. I did try to play a deck with Profane Nexus for a while, and I have the same issues with it. It's difficult to protect. Its payoffs aren't earth-shattering, especially considering you have to sacrifice your board for it. So I'm not saying that playing time is a lesser version of a Carver deck, but I think that Profane Nexus is not a particularly huge draw. What do you think about these Carver decks, Ilya?
They're absolutely nuts. What else is there to say? I ran into M. Gallup playing the FTS one, and when it goes off, it goes off. It was whatchamacallit? Calibrate into Cell into Shrine, and then just holy moly pop off all day.
And Profane Nexus gets a lot better with trying to carve it as well.
Well, to counter those points, I'm actually not too impressed by the Carver decks. I think that Carver is an extremely powerful card. I don't like the decks that are built around it too much. I think that they're kind of clunky. They revolve around Carver, but if your Carver is removed, I think it can be difficult for those decks to function smoothly. I've been on Even Elysian for a while now. I've jammed quite a few games with it, And I found that even Elysian is a deck that has 8 equivocates. You don't have 8 carvers. You might have, multiple ways of searching up carver, but basically I feel like even Elysian can just find answers for all of them in ways that the sacrifice deck can't really answer. And without the carver, I feel like even Elysian just totally outdraws the carver decks and then eventually wins with something. And even Elysian also has a good way of shutting down the Shrine to Carve It, because it has Pride Leader that just destroys relics.
I agree on the Pride Leader, and I agree on the Carver points for the Stone Scar and FJS variants. But the FTS variant has too many sacrifice outlets to sacrifice cards to really even care about Carver. Heck, I find myself just sacrificing my Carver every so often. I don't care that much about it.
I don't necessarily think that... Well, if you play in a way such that you can hold up the sacrifice for Carver, I think that's going to hinder your ability to develop, because it's not like the deck has a lot of things that can be played at fast speed. Whereas the Elysian deck has that flexibility. You can hold 4 up, and if they play a Carver, you can go ahead and equivocate it. But if they don't, you can go ahead and put in a Pride Leader or Gentle Grazer.
I mean, I don't even care if they equivocate the Grazer. I just play the 1-drop, sack the 1-drop that it gets, continue going through the deck. The problem is when you hit blanks, that always sucks. You actually want to equivocate the Strange Burglars in the FTS deck. Those are the more value engines that you're leaning on.
Well, maybe, but it's not like you have all the time in the world to activate Strange Burglar when you're playing against even Elysian. Like that deck comes out of the gate pretty hard and pretty fast and hits pretty hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, having played several games, mostly against TRS members on Carver decks, I felt like even Elysian was pretty favored in the matchup, and I do not want to play any deck this weekend that has an uphill battle to fight against even Elysian.
I can see that. I don't know if the FTS version has an uphill battle, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I mean, I expect a very big turnout for even Elysian. It's a deck that people enjoy playing, well, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's always been kind of overrepresented in on ladder, and if it's also a deck that someone like me is saying is probably one of the best decks for this weekend, I think we're going to see a lot of it.
I've heard Winchest control decks teching Light the Fuse against it. Light the Fuse in the market just to counteract it.
That sounds really bad.
That seems like giving your opponent an even-handed golem they don't have to draw. I think one of the keys, or at least one idea I follow, is like if I ever would get too far down the rabbit hole of teching stuff, I just go back. You're gonna win more tournaments are won by somebody just playing the level 1 with slight variations than they are with some big, tech. You're not gonna win a tournament playing cards like Shush and Light the Fuse and Waylay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, Decimated Waylay now completely demolishes Felrock decks if you can play the Felrock yourself.
That's pretty funny. I don't think that there's going to be a ton of Felrock decks. Let's actually, speaking of Felrock decks, let's talk about a card that I think a lot of people thought was going to have a big impact, but has kind of fallen by the wayside in this metagame, and that is Grodov Stranger. People saw Grodov Stranger, and it's like, oh yeah, it's great incidental hate against Reanimator decks or other decks that use the Void, but I don't think that it's actually good in even Elysian. I've seen some builds of Xenon that have Grodov Stranger, but not too much aside from that. It seemed like it was going to be a big player, but I just haven't seen it a ton.
To be fair, those Xenon decks are scary.
I think there's an easy explanation for why it's not seeing play, and that's because getting your Grodov Stranger Madness is awful. You cannot have that liability in this metagame, and I played with Grodov Stranger on day 1, sort of before people figured out the Carver decks, and it felt great then, but it's not good now just because of the meta. I think that's the reason. I think it's a really powerful card.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Madness and also Equivocate, the 8 Equivocates coming out of the Elysian decks. You don't want to get something that doesn't get a ton of value right away, hit by cheap removal that, well, is either really cheap like Equivocate or comes with some extra value like Madness does. And I think that's really what dominates this format.
Honestly, I think Equivocate's more backbreaking to the deck because the Grodov Strangers these days, they're going to be followed up by Instincts and Xenon Initiation. Mostly Predator's Instinct because it costs 1.
Yeah, that's also a good point. Being able to blow that, like if you go for the Predator's Instinct and it gets equivocated before that ends up working out, that is an absolute huge thing. So let's talk about. So I think we can agree that there's going to be a lot of Carver and a lot of Even Elysian. Which one we think is actually the top deck and the deck to beat may differ.
Don't forget Ikaria and her new home, the Zolta Arcanum. The FTJ decks are just nuts.
Well, I mean, we've seen that for a whole set. That's not new with the latest set, but yeah, I suppose so. I think FTJ is kind of...
It's gotten better.
And then Grodov Stranger comes in and kills your Ikaria, and then shuffles your deck too.
Well, I think you play Grodov Stranger in addition to the Ikaria to try to help you get from 6 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a possibility.
Yeah, I think you should definitely, like, if you're going for that kind of, like, I don't like Grodov Stranger in this meta, but if you're playing FEJ, you want for Grodov Stranger.
I don't know that you want all 4. Like, mixing it with Rezon, I think, is reasonable. But that does seem like the best deck for it right now, at the very least.
Honestly, you could probably go for a weird armory build with the strange blacksmith as well.
Hold on. Even Elysian is everywhere, and decks that are fighting against Even Elysian are everywhere, which means that Pride Leader is in full force. I don't think that this is the best time to be breaking out the armory.
It's not. I just thought I would mention it as it came to my mind. It's really not.
Alright, so how do we think that FTJ stacks up to these two front runners? Ilya, you think it's good against the two top decks right now?
I'm not quite sure. I haven't played the matchup too much, but I think anything trying to beat those two decks, FTJ will utterly dumpster because you're trying to go ideally a little bit bigger, have higher value units and some removal for the carvers and the teachers and whatever it is. And then FTJ just sits back and says, okay, draw your cheap removal. I'm just going to wait until I slam you with a Sword of Unity to Karya and slam Kairos on.
FTJ is the beatdown against Carver.
Definitely. And I'm doubtful FTJ does well against those decks. If they get an Induced Madness on them, their Ikaria and whatever the Ikaria hits mean nothing. They will all get sacrificed as you churn through the deck. Inducement Madness is just a disgusting card, and it's really only kept in check by Pride Leader and other Relic Destruction.
I don't know, Cat, like, playing a 5-cost,
it wins the game on its own sometimes.
When they have their Even Golems and their Temple Scribes and maybe a couple Dusk Raiders and just they're churning through their deck, they're going to find the Cat.
And you probably get the Shrine first against Even Elysian, typically.
I don't know, like they'll find their Cat. They'll find 2 Cats. You're not going to win the Cat war. They're going to Temple Standard their Cat. It's a losing proposition.
Well, I haven't seen a Temple Standard on a Pride Leader, but either way, it might not go well, or it might. Who knows? We'll just have to see. Anyways, we were talking about FTJ, the whole Ikaria, Kairos, Zolta Arcanum value engine. They have rules too. Harsh rule isn't bad.
No, it isn't.
Editing Sunyveil here. This is the moment when the other people on the cast realized that my power was out, and they had to go it alone. And to add to that, Ilya seemingly disappeared for part of the cast, so it was just TheBoxer and TempestDragonKing. Thanks to TheBoxer and TempestDragonKing for finishing off the cast on their own without my wizened guidance, if you will. Alright, back to the cast.
Oh geez, power went out. We need to run this on our own. Oh boy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a card in FTJ that, like, everyone was crazy about, but I want to hear your take on Naoki.
Have not seen much of him, her, it around. Is it a her? Either way. I just haven't seen much of the card around.
I've seen a bit of Naoki. They might be decent enough against the Elysian list, but it is a good equivocate target.
It gets equivocated at Madness.
The sack decks have a field day with Naoki.
Yeah, I can imagine, fat exalted unit.
Even if you put a sword on it, you could just ping it with a torch and then do your madness / whatever you want.
I don't know, when people were going crazy about it for a while, but it looks like Godon, but Godon gave units in your deck warp and had warp. This doesn't have warp. It doesn't give things warp. I guess it has endurance, but like this does not seem like, besides being hard to cast, it just doesn't seem like what the deck wants to be doing on 5 or 6.
Godon's a good comparison. This is more for that FTJ Armory list, which again isn't good.
Oh, I don't think this is good in Armory either. I think the relic text is just flavor text. I don't think Naoki is playable.
Yeah, that's definitely an option, and I'm definitely open to that option. I personally think they're fringe playable myself. Certainly not the thing that's setting the tourney scene on fire that we expect.
Mm-hmm. The card I've really been surprised I haven't seen more of is Blade Crafter. I was really high on that card just because like it can get a knife against aggro, it can get a dice show against control. I don't know. Do either you think I'm crazy for that?
Yeah, it's the 4-mana Oni Corrupt.
Yeah.
She seems pretty alright. Yeah, I definitely think.
Okay, so unless either of you have more to say about FTJ, what other decks, like, other than the big two, are there that people should be thinking about?
I mentioned it earlier, but the Xenon Stranger lists can be scary against anything running control. They can easily run Banish, which is also a card that's incredible right now. Strange Navigators, very irritating value engine. Draver's Farm means that those even Elysian decks can't really be running Grodov Stranger. Another point against running an even Elysian, by the way. You get shut down by Draver's Farm. And Makar Stranger is also really good.
So I've seen it a bit, but it seems like it can do powerful things, but is playing a worse low end worth this top end that you get? Because it's pretty clear, you're playing 2 3s and 3 2s for 2 rather than playing your teachers and your rip knives. You're having to play worse cards early on to get this crazy top end. I think those strangers are probably better than the other top end, but is it worth it to play the bad low? I know Navigator can be a value engine, but you're having to play that over teacher or rip knife. Is there a world where you just cut out those early strangers and say, I'm going to play this top end that synergizes together and maybe a couple farms and just play good low drops?
People have definitely tried that one too. I think that the high-end strangers really just want low-end strangers to combo off, like those Strange Navigators and Horus Travers. They may not be the strongest when they hit the field, but if you use them with Grodov Stranger or Makar Stranger, you develop a lot of advantage really fast. That's kind of the point of those decks. They want to explode, and playing against them, you have to stop that. And that usually means removing Makar or Grodov Stranger at fast speed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which even Elysian is better at, admittedly.
Okay, so we've talked about FPJ, Xenon as other options. Is there any world where FJS sees play in this ECQ? I'm guessing no. I don't think it got enough new stuff.
Not really. It's going to be pushed out by even Elysian, that Xenon deck, sacrifice decks. It's actually getting chunked all around.
Mm-hmm. Ilya, have any of your Machinations decks seemed like they could be players in this weekend?
Doubtful. I don't think I've tuned them enough, and playing one right now, it's just kind of rough. When you don't draw Machination, you're just not doing as busted.
Hey, guess what? My Carver list runs Machinations. That's a very powerful thing to be doing, especially if you could get Kato down in the void.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm still just amazed that I don't know. It's just this it gives you sack fodder, and then it's also a win condition in the late game. It's like a Gear Cruncher, Farcatcher split card.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description of it, actually.
Let me think. Other decks. Well, we briefly mentioned Reanimator. I don't know it, and I think it was Sonny who said he wasn't expecting me. I don't know. I could see it coming back because even Elysian can't really do anything against it, can they?
They don't really have the tools to deal with it unless they decide to run Grodov Stranger, and even then, That's a 6 drop. Reanimator's going off on 5.
Yeah, and Reanimator can sometimes even just, on turn 7, play Cartographer, discard Azendil or whatever, bring it back, and and Azendil is, well, I guess you can equivocate it, but it's still, there's 2 blockers. Reanimator can even get out of the Grodov Stranger lock, I think.
Azendil in general just seems phenomenal right now. It's kind of what you want to be doing for a top-end card.
I was early on in the format, when I was just playing the unrefined FTS list, there was a more Tota-focused one I was playing where I was playing Azendil in the market. I know Tota Circle is a card that I guess, I don't know if people stopped trying it, but this is a bit of a tangent, but it was really powerful if nobody catted it.
Yeah, you need to be on the watch for Tota Circle too. It's honestly pretty powerful. It allows you to draw a lot of cards in decks built around it.
Yeah, no, it's just refill the board, refill your hand every turn. Yeah, it's crazy powerful, except for, the kitty stomps on it.
The cat tax is heavy.
The cat tax, okay, let's talk about the cat tax for a second. There's been I've seen some discussions around it where people are getting tired of hearing about the cat tax and are it's similar to dies to removal. I don't want to straw man anyone, but I somebody, if I misrepresented an argument, tell me somewhere. But okay, I've seen, it's the same as dies to removal. It's not. Dying to Vara's Favor or Snowball is much worse than dying to Annihilate. That's the difference between this and normal dies to removal. This is at very low cost to the cat player. This is tempo positive for them. Card advantage positive.
I prefer to think that the cat tax doesn't exist, honestly. Unless dealing with cards that really rely on it not being there, like Knucklebones or Pit of Lenecta. Pit of Lenecta is probably not playable right now.
Yeah, I don't think so. Unless you're, we say this, and then Open the Vaults is going to win the ECQ.
Yeah, you're right. There's just going to be some janky combo deck, or Answer to Vault is a combo deck. You silly dork. Let's talk about the combo decks. Sunny would want to talk about the combo decks.
So which combo decks are there? There's Stranger combo, I think Batteries is Glimpse combo.
Yep.
Hey there, Editing Sunyveil here. Glimpse decks were brought up, and that's something that I actually have been working on quite a bit lately. I don't think that they're good enough or consistent enough in order to be a serious consideration for this ECQ. It's basically impossible to play wrong against a Glimpse deck. All you have to do is attack your opponent, so I can't count on opponent misplays helping me out. And it's a very hard deck to play. You have to play basically perfectly every game that you play in order to maximize your chance of winning, and that's really difficult. So I posted a list in Throne Lists Only in the Discord. If you are interested in a Glimpse combo deck, yeah, I can win about maybe a little more than 50% of its games, but I really wouldn't suggest it for this weekend. All right, back to the cast.
Any others?
Reanimator's technically a combo. We talked about that, though.
I tried to touch a battle deck. Maybe you can call it that. Maybe you can call it that combo, but nothing worth writing home over.
Yeah, touch a battle decks feel like rogue decks. They're a bit too slow, a bit too inconsistent.
It's very good with Tamarisk. The problem is, though, when you only draw one of those 2 cards, and they're awful.
Right.
Because, I think that's the best way to do it. Not Reverberating Strike, because Tamarisk is probably the closest to playable. It's also uncounterable. I guess I say counterable as though everyone in the audience knows Magic, but it's unnegatable. Yeah.
Also, Torrential Downpour is better than Reverberating Strike. We're talking about Throne here.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. You could probably do that, but again, this is getting into the trying to too cute that you probably shouldn't do it.
Yep. Things that are... So yeah, let's talk about the better combo decks. Glimpse.
I have not played a single... Oh, no, go on.
I haven't played a single Glimpse game either.
Batteries claims is good, which he's generally pretty good at picking out these combo decks. Or one of my old favorites, FTP Moment before Markets. I don't know, Glimpse is probably basically the same as before. You get new cargoes, though, which is kind of a big deal, I think. Because, cargoes and Seeks were really good in the deck.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention something about all those new tri-faction decks. The chants are actually really good. Of course they're really good, but there's something that we just forgot to mention them in the discussion. They're a lot more powerful than the cargos. They can draw a sigil even when you have full influence.
They are. Like, you still get the option not to decimate. Whereas cargos is just, oops, it flipped, crap.
Yeah, this is a huge distinction. Like, that was, like, the ability to run better copies of Seek. Like, you ran cargos as Seeks 5 through 7 in FJS a lot. Like, worse Seeks, you know, you were saying, okay, I'm going to run this slightly worse Seek because I want more copies. Sometimes you now get to run 4 better Seeks, and then Seek power is going to be Seeks 5 through 7.
Yep, this is absolutely correct from what I've seen from FTJ.
FTJ is the deck that most wants those extra Seeks.
They're also better tech against Azendel. Well, because, like, better than Seek, because if your Azendel opponent gets a Seek, they can play it and get a sigil, but if your Azendel opponent gets your FTJ chant, they can't get a sigil. It's the small edges.
It's definitely something to look out for. And as I was saying, Invoke's powerful. Use it.
But this Invoke is significantly worse than, like, an Incarnus Invoke. I think that's an important point. Like, Incarnus, you get 3 cards from the same faction, like one of each type, and
it is on average weaker than an Incarnus Invoke. I agree about that.
There's a larger pool.
Fire and Time are interesting pools, too. I'm thinking about the Display of Destruction here. The Chant of Destruction.
Yeah. Okay, any other cards that have been, like... So what cards have really impressed people, or what cards have been, like, a big letdown after the last week of playing?
Well, I mean, Aramot's Machinations is definitely my favorite new card of the set. I'm not sure how good it is, though, because the kind of decks that want to play lots of 1-3 drops, which means they actually have to draw Aramot's Machination time. And if they don't, they run the risk of just fizzling out. But the card's certainly an absolute blast to play with, so there you have it.
The card's probably just ridiculous. It usually gets 2 units. Sometimes it gets 3. And those units are units that you want to be playing anyways. And the 1-drops and some of them may be generating additional units or getting you another trip to the market.
Like Shadowlands Guide. Instead of reviving 3 units, now you can revive 4.
Mm-hmm. Shadowlands Guide too. That's another good 3.
So, speaking of markets, what have people's experiences been with the market spells? I think I've enjoyed playing with the Justice one in Expedition Unseen, and that's about it. Like, I have not liked the gameplay from a lot of them.
The market spells seem like Expedition spells more than Throne spells. We could probably get them in Throne lists. There's probably going to be a list with the spells in the Throne Championship, like at least one. Someone's going to have a crazy brew with those.
But, like, beyond playability, I just have not liked the gameplay of them when I've played them.
I had fun with Blazing Salvo. That one's pretty good.
It is, but, like, merchants stopped flooding from being such a big factor in the late game, and Blazing Salvo can't always do that because it's getting you a 2-drop, you know, or, like, Crack the Earth is a 1-drop spell that you have to trade a card in your hand for a 5-drop. That's a lot of potential decisions you're cutting off from yourself.
There's a fun fact about Blazing Salvo in 2-drops. Seek Answers is a card.
It is, yeah, I guess you can choose to play Russian Roulette.
Or Petition, if we're playing Throne.
But, like, if you want a card, you know, that's impactful in the late game, you can't always do that. Like, I think the only card that really did that at all is I played Reunite in Expedition off of Blazing Salvo, and that was fine. But, like, there really are not a ton of options to mitigate Flood for Blazing Salvo, or what is it, Condemn? The 1-drop one?
Yeah, Condemn.
And just merchants, like, part of what makes the gameplay, I don't know, I love that it adds more play to the late game because, you know, you're not drawing this, what would be an example of a 3-drop played early on in the games. You're not drawing just some random 3-drop that's going to be underwhelming in the late game. You have more cards that lead to more decisions being made in the late game, and less games are decided purely on who draws better in the late game.
Definitely. I agree with all of that. I like that too.
So like the market spells, I don't know, crack the earth. As I said, you're cutting off your decisions. You're trading a card in your hand for a 5-drop, and if you play Crack the Earth on turn 1, 2, or 3, you're still cutting off at least one turn of decision making. Like that 5-drop won't be a card you could potentially play. And like, yes, you can, there's cool stuff you can do with the Cultist and sacrifice it to Arc of Soul, but a lot of these cards are either the reason I've liked the Justice one is because 3 is sort of the sweet spot of cards that are impactful early and can sometimes be impactful late. And also giving flying works well in the Unseen deck and is like not always going down. It's close enough to a card most of the time. But like, getting a one drop, like Condemn is only an early game card. Not much can be gotten late.
Condemn has quite a few more problems with the late game than Blazing Salvo or some of the other cards. But it can get Charge Chain Flail, which is interesting. I mentioned this earlier. I feel that's relevant here.
I was just saying, like, part of the reason I like the Justice one the most is just because 3 is impactful. You can get 3s that are impactful early and impactful late. And, 2, you can't always do that. 4, you can't always get something that early. 5, you definitely can't get something that early. I don't know. It's a cool experiment, but I do not like these being the only market option for Expedition. I could come around on it later, because I've been playing much more Throne, as we all have, than Expedition.
I just realized there's a funny thing you can do with Throne and Crack the Earth. Jotun Hurler's a 5-drop. You could do that to just get a snowball, but then you'll have to stick Jotun Hurler in the black market, which you never want to do.
Yeah, it can get a Jotun Hurler back though. Like that, I don't know where that would be useful, but it can't necessarily, like if you have 2 of them in your hand, that makes it a little more reasonable early game, or 2 Crack the Earth in your hand.
Definitely something to think about. Anyways, back to you.
So, like, these market spells really bring up the stock in any Echo or Fate card, because juggling is a topic that's often brought up. And juggling is not where you get the advantage when it comes to like Merchants and Zhou or Merchants and Jotun Hurler. Where you get the advantage is when the card leaves your hand and goes to your market, because you're trading a card in your hand, like you're getting card advantage from Zhou without ever having to cast it. Like you have this extra card in your hand that you didn't have to pay for, and you're putting it somewhere else and getting a card you can play. And like when you juggle it back, that's good in the late game, but that's also undoing. Like you're getting a huge tempo advantage, and like whenever you put a Zhou or Hurler or Thunderstrike Dragon or Twin Rooted Sauropod, which saw a surprising amount of play last Expedition, the moment you put the card in the market is the moment you get this crazy advantage.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. But however, we're talking about Throne. The Expedition ECQ isn't going to be for a while. We should note all this information, as it's good information. But now we gotta talk about more decks and maybe what we're playing.
Oh yeah, that is on the document.
So y'all already know what I'm bringing. I'm bringing that FTS sacrifice list. I think Kato's more integral to the game plan of that list than Carver, because you get 2 bodies. Kato eventually starts making giants. Those giants win the game. It starts to become a bit too overwhelming for a deck to deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm not completely decided. I'm probably going to play FJS Carver. The reason I'm undecided is I'm a little worried about, like, I haven't seen much hate that's been successful so far against the deck just on ladder. But I also don't want to run into some tech that somebody, like, because if people do really go crazy on the hate and like more than they are doing on ladder and really run all the downpours, all the hailstorms, all the Black Sky Harbingers, if people get really worried about the deck, which I could see happening because Carver and Kato are some of the most powerful cards printed in a while, like up, not Endra level, but kind of close to it.
Yep, definitely close to it, especially Kato.
And like that's something I think people will catch on, and they could bring the hate, which won't necessarily make me not play the deck. because basically every time I've thought about playing Grenadin and not played it, I regretted that. One of those times was when GT100 won the ECQ with it. But, even though this is a different deck, it's the same style of deck. It's a deck I like playing a lot, and that I'm very comfortable with this type of deck, and I think that's an important factor.
And hey, being comfortable with a deck means you play better with it. I think Skycrag and FPS can afford to run a lot of that hate.
Wait, Skycrag and FPS? FPS?
No, FPS. Felnscar.
By Skycrag, you mean Spellcrag?
Spellcrag, more specifically, yes. Kennedin's I don't think it's a saying.
No, it's not. Like, I tried to help somebody was asking about it, and I thought about it, and I just could not theory craft a list that would work.
Is Kennedin's more of a thing with Kato now? I don't know if it is.
Ooh, End of Hostilities Kato does sound kind of cool.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it's not as good as filling the void as Shadow decks.
No, and Kato doesn't make Grenadin, it makes Totemite, which Combustion Cell cares about. Grenadin. Before we get back to real decks, one deck that I want to try out at some point, but I haven't had the time to, is I want to try Calibrate and Nahid's Distillation in some kind of Kennedin deck, because I feel like those both go really well in the archetype.
Yeah, I'm thinking FTP is pretty darn good place for Kennedins to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for hate Skycrag, yeah, it has Hailstorm, it could run Downpour if somebody wanted to. It can run 4 Hurler though, and that's big, just killing Carver for 1.
It also has attachment removal for those shrines.
Yeah, it has Garden. It also is like a combo style deck. Like, it does not care about your Madness, your Combust.
It seems like it actually seems like one of the worst matchups for those Carver lists. Just in general, it's going to go around your units, and the Carver decks have to be the beatdown.
Yeah, which is not where Carver wants to be.
Yes.
Okay, so FPS. I haven't seen too much of this, but what does this deck look like?
It's honestly more of a Siri craft than anything. I think Felnscar's gonna be best served and thrown by dragons. Again, the new display is good. Ace Adonis is really oppressive if you manage to get a single hit in. It turns down poison displays into 4 damage one-sided wipes, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth being terrified over.
Yeah, no, Ace Adonis is a card that when I first saw it in the spoiler, I was like, yeah, okay, this is fine. It might see play somewhere. And then I haven't seen it, my experience with the card in Expedition has been good. I haven't seen it in Throne, but I think it is more powerful than I initially thought it might be.
It's definitely a powerful dragon. It's also a 3/4. Dodges a lot of the removal that Justice has. So if Arcano ever becomes popular, Ace Adonis is probably coming with it.
Yeah.
In some form.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me think. Other decks. The AP list I played in the last, I don't know if it was called the ECQ. You know what I'm talking about.
Man, Argenport.
Yeah.
It feels like Induced Madness food.
Yeah, I know. It feels too slow. Like, why would you play Street Urchin when you can play Carver? Like, it's meant to be a grindy deck, but it's playing much more fair cards. You're playing Harsh Rule, which it's just always going to be on the fairer end of decks unless it's in, unit lists.
It's trying to be fair in a strictly unfair format.
You're trying to play Macdo. So this change didn't happen, but there was a big debate inside TRS in which Lights Out Ace and I were just basically saying Macdo is not a card we should be playing in this day and age.
And yet people still play Macdo.
Well, no, I played Macdo in my final list because I couldn't find a suitable replacement in time. We're talking crunch time, hours before the tournament. We were like, Ace and I were like, yeah, we don't want to play this, and people were like, okay, what are you going to play over it? And we couldn't figure out a suitable replacement. But Macdo historically has, other than Echo Macdo, not been a card you want to play in your deck. Like, even early on, when people first started playing it and when Omens of the Past released, it wasn't that good of a card then.
That's pretty funny because I've heard quite a few different opinions on that. I've also been wrecked by the card more often than I'd like to admit.
But like APS... Oh, no, go on.
Mocto is honestly a disgustingly resilient card, and also one of the best madness targets in the game. Second to only, of course, Rost.
Yeah, don't play Rost this weekend.
No, don't play Rost. Feln is bad. Rost is bad.
Okay, I haven't seen, like, Feln with Black Sky Harbinger and Champion of Cunning. I guess I haven't tried the deck. It could be too slow, but I don't hate playing Black Sky Harbinger in this meta.
Yeah, Feln is absolutely too slow. Could probably play Black Sky Harbinger. That would go under the FPS clump.
And like Vara isn't that good of a card either. Like I wouldn't want to be playing Vara this weekend.
You just sack a token.
You sack a token, or you just like these decks have just relatively cheap 1-for-1 removal. They can even, depending on the version, either sack a token and display, or just display, depending on which display it is. Like, you can sack a token and ignore it, or you can kill it, or even Elysian can Spell Shaper it. Vara and Sandstorm Titan, like, just stats units don't seem good right now.
Stat boys are bad.
Mm-hmm. You want your units to do something, even your low-cost units, and you don't want just stats. You don't want your large units to be vulnerable to madness. The removal right now is just putting you under a lot of constraints because it's powerful removal we have.
Yep. However, we should also talk about the downside of Equivocate while we're here.
The downside of if the game goes long, it's card disadvantage.
Yes, and it can give you almost anything.
Scourge of Frostholm.
What 10s are you playing?
No, you're not anymore. But in the FTP moment mirror, the tech was to get your moment to make 10/10s and equivocate your own golem into a Scourge of Frostholm.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of an old clip. Lights Out Ace equivocated a 16 drop into a Nova Quake. He then bonded it.
That's incredible.
It was incredible. Anyways, back at hand. If you equivocate a 4-drop, there's a chance it becomes like a Vara or something that can snipe a unit, or a Gentle Grazer, or heaven forbid, Sabertooth's Pride Leader. Suddenly, your obelisk is gone. Have fun.
Yeah. Also, don't accidentally equivocate your own unit when playing Spell Shaper. That's the other downside.
Unless you mean to.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, there's that downside to equivocate. I don't know, there's also the downside to the Madness Combust package, if we're talking about downsides of removal, and that's Tokas. Like, Madness can get it, but Combust cannot kill Tokas.
Your whole package besides Madness is invalidated by Tokas. It's honestly pretty scary.
It doesn't stop Carver, but it stopped everything else. And if you can get a sword on that versus the Carver player, kind of game over.
Having this talk, I think I want to be running more banishes. I think I just want to be running 4.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Tokas is a good answer, but it's not unanswerable from the the Carver players can adapt and should adapt to this possible threat of Tokas. Because I'm seeing it a bit more and more on ladder. Okay.
It's good to know that adaptation is taking place. Tokas has always just been a little pushed and kind of spooky.
Okay. Any other decks we could possibly be missing?
Huru isn't good.
What kind of Huru?
I was thinking aggro, maybe mid-range.
When you say aggro, any specific, flyers, do you mean?
Like Shenron flyers.
Yeah, I don't think Shenron's gonna cut it in Throne.
No.
Or at least, maybe in Cambrai, but Shenron is not... You don't want to be playing, for Magic players out there, Jackal Pup when people are playing Skull Clamp.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did forget about Cambrai. That's actually a popular ladder deck, and it's going to be seeing play this ECQ. It's going to have decent turnout.
We need to separate out different versions of Cambrai, because there's Cambrai aggro, and then there's Cambrai mid, ramp, big Cambrai, Voda combo, whatever you want to call it.
Ilya said Big Combre is bad.
Oh yeah, he did.
I think I'll trust his judgment regarding that.
Yeah, okay, but for Combre aggro, I don't think it's good enough against the Carver deck. I think Carver, it'll just find the blockers and removal and life gain it needs, and I have a very good win rate against Combre aggro.
FJS is probably the better version to be dealing with that. It can actually find decently sized blockers. Crown Watch Press Gang is a 3/3 that's a recurring blocker.
Mm-hmm.
The addition of Amory's Choice from last set is a problem still.
Yeah, it is. Amory's Choice on Teacher is a big problem. That's how you lose that matchup as the sacrifice deck.
You need to be careful of Teacher. You just really need to respect Teacher.
Even if it takes sacrificing your Carver to combust on turn 2, you get rid of the Teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, that's enough. That and Tokas are two of the most annoying cards for sacrifice, I think.
And Combre can run both.
Yeah, Combre aggro can, Tokas isn't going to be, you're obviously giving up something to run Tokas in Combre aggro, because what would that, you could play Auric Rune, whatever the Rune Keeper, not Rune Hammer, the 3-cost 4/4.
Auric Record Keeper.
Auric Record Keeper, the Combre Bark.
Yes.
Yeah, you could be running, I don't know what you'd be cutting for Tokas, but
I like how this Auric Record Keeper is an uncommon.
Yeah.
I like how this uncommon from, it was Dusk Road, Jesus.
It was Dusk Road?
Either Dusk Road or Fall of Argenport. It stayed in that Combre deck the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know which it would, but you're cutting some higher attack 3-drop for Tokas, and that's a big cost, so you have to be sure that can even win the Carver match, because, if Carver is running enough ways to kill Tokas, then obviously you'd rather be running just the good, I refer to it as the good unit, but, maybe a better phrase would be the default non-tech version, because Tokas is good against Carver, but it's not unbeatable for Carver, and, you sort of have to be, when you're making these tech decisions, okay, this helps the matchup, but does it help it enough versus how many points I'm giving up in some other matchup? Because you're going to be losing more against control decks if you're playing a 2/4 rather than a 4/4.
But Tokas also ramps you up to give you better stand together plays.
It does, but I think in general, if you were not, the other card is going to be, even if Tokas is still decent in that matchup, the other card is going to be better a lot of the time, I think.
Auric Record Keeper just slams on a lot of control decks, yeah.
So even if they're both good, like, you're giving something up in that matchup to get something in this other one, and you have to figure out, am I gaining enough here for what I'm losing over there? You know, how many more games am I going to win from this, you know, putting this in than I would have from putting that in? And I don't know, like that, I think you do still run Tokas, but like it's not obvious there. You know, there is a big cost to playing hate cards in aggro specifically.
True, definitely. Is IlyaK here to say what he's going to play?
IlyaK, they unnerfed Genev Merchant. They're bringing back sideboards. IlyaK.
I love it. With all these units on board, attacking and blocking's gonna become more complicated. You just gotta do it right if you want to win.
One thing against Combre is, or not Combre, Elysian. When you think they have an Equivocate, I don't like, unless you really need to go for the double blocks, this may seem like sort of a trivial statement, but just try and avoid those double blocks. Or do a single block somewhere with one of your bigger units and double block with two smaller ones. So if they have to use the you want to get them to use their Equivocate on the least valuable unit that you can.
Yes. So like if you have 3/1/1s and a 5/4, and they have a 4/4 and a good old teacher, if you know, an even-handed golem going, you want to block the 4/4 with the 5/4 and double block the 2/2.
Yeah.
With 2/1/1s.
I don't know. This is a hard board stalls against even Elysian. A kind of hard thing to talk about on a podcast just because it's so visual.
It's going to really just devolve into a huge grind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Try not to let anything through that's very important, obviously. If a bunch of things are swinging, just calm down, make the blocks that are the most important first,
Mm-hmm.
and then go for the least important blocks while not missing anything.
Yeah, and one other thing, like if you're in the mirror for Even Elysian and you're wondering if you should be attacking or not, and I get there's this anxiety of how is this game going to end? Should I be the first one to be attacking? And what you should do in that moment is like first, like you said, not panic, but next you want to ask, okay, like how is this going to end? How can either player get through? And you want to think like, what card could either of us draw that's going to be important? How can I respond to that? And it's often a short list of cards, like maybe Equivocate, or I don't personally support playing this card, but it might be Codex your opponent has. And if Codex is their only out, you want to save your Temple Tactic and if you have a Pride Leader play, your Temple Tactic, or, a Pride Leader in hand, and you want to keep that, and you want to just protect it with your life, because oftentimes there's going to be one player that's it's deterministic. They're going to win if the board stall keeps like this, and it's up to the other player not to mess up.
Right.
Or to mess up, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't actually talk about Codex. That's an interesting one. Like, Codex is an option in these Elysian lists, but you have to go up pretty high to get to it.
Yeah, like the influence tables I've seen when people put it in Shiftstone, like I know it's not perfect like by turn, but like if you look at the by draw, it's still like you have to be a ton of draws in before you're able to play it consistently. And I don't think it's worth the payoff, because giving all your units flying, like that's assuming you have this big board, which you don't always have.
You won't always have a big board. Sometimes you're getting aggressed.
Yeah, and there's also like, I don't know, how much does it cost? Does it cost 6 to draw the cards?
Yes, it costs 6. It's a 4 cost. The spellcraft costs 3. And it costs 6 to activate the draw ability. And it gives all the units flying. This is a 4 primal relic, by the way, for all of you listening out there that don't know what it is.
And my problem is first the cat tax. Like, I think Obelisk is just so good that you're still going to be running your copies of it. But like this, I don't think meets that bar of like, yeah, okay, there's the cat tax. There's also, you have to have a bunch of stuff in play for this to be doing a lot. Like, if you only have 2 units in play, it's a slightly better cookbook. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not impressed by relics that you keep having to dump a ton of power into over the course of the game.
Shardbinder does make them better, but he's just a 3-1 overwhelm. I don't know if Even Elysian wants to be playing him unless you build the deck around him. And I think he's better in just regular decks, because you get access to a lot of other good relics, like Grodov's Burden and Waystone Gate. Maybe Waystone Gate's not throne playable, but it exists as an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like... Oh yeah, Grodov's Burden is, I think, I know it's like obviously not in Even Elysian, but like it's a powerful card that I think will find a home somewhere, maybe in a Shardbinder deck, maybe in just, when I was playing FTS, Carver, Totemite, whatever you want to call it, the one with Tota Circle, I played 3 Tota Circle, 4 Shrine, and then 1 Grodov's Burden main to make the Calibrate math work, because I played 1 Tota Circle in the market. And Burden it was pretty powerful there, because like Tota Circle gives you a bunch of 2/2s, and those will get exalted from Burden, and you can often stall out the game, so that like paying the 5, and when you have like the Tota in the top 10 cards of your deck, it'll often just put one into play. It's a powerful, Exalted is a crazy ability. Like, as we've learned from Draft, like, the last draft set, almost any card with Exalted on it was amazing.
We saw it in last ECQ too. There was an Exalted combo deck running around. Do you think that deck got any more updates?
I don't know.
That one's going to be super hard to judge.
Yeah, that was one of my... Yeah, I remember losing to that in the last Throne ECQ in the qualifier round. Or not the top 64, but not the last Throne like the one a bunch of people played FJS in.
Right.
That was one of my losses. And it was just a cool deck then, and I had, it was too late when I realized what was going on, and they just killer changed my board. Maybe the deck got something. Maybe Helm of Kodash. I don't know. Again, that's like these relics. There's a big problem with them. They're a relic.
If you play enough of them, there won't be enough cats for them. That's obviously a flawed way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, other play patterns. I don't know. Like if you're the Carver player, you can hold your shrine until you really need until you either need the life gain or your opponent fully depletes their power and they can't play cat that turn. Like often you don't need to play the shrine early on.
Do it on a turn when you're going off. That makes sense.
At least get the 8/8 attacking.
Yeah, get something attacking.
Mm-hmm. Because like if cat comes down and destroys the shrine, they're still attack. Like it doesn't matter if they don't have charge anymore.
They're still attacking, yes. I've run into this before, but they lose the lifesteal.
Mm-hmm.
I find that even Legion is often just pushing Carver decks into a corner pretty quickly, so your hand is kind of forced. Just hope they don't have it.
Yeah, like sometimes you do have to do that. I don't know.
But if they just pass with 4 empty power and don't really deploy much of value, you could probably just do a little sacrifice turn and start cycling through your deck a little.
Yeah.
If you can afford it.
Yeah. I don't know, I find it's often around like turn 6 or 7 or maybe 8 even that I'll be like playing out the shrine. I don't know, it's in the late game. I feel like a lot of, I don't know, I've been able to grind them out in a fair amount of games. Maybe that's a bit of a difference between the versions, but like I can't get the same explosive starts with my display, but they do sometimes force you to do stuff and then you just lose.
Yeah, that's the big problem with it was the problem with Expedition Elysian too at some point. They just forced your hand and you died.
Oh, the off topic, but like
Griffin.
Daring Griffin is one of my least favorite cards to play against in the history of Eternal.
Daring Griffin is probably playable in these even Elysian lists, honestly.
If not for the influence, I would say yes.
The influence is a problem? What?
Double Primal on turn 4, I think, is non-trivial.
It's non-trivial, yes, but you do have insignias and
you have insignias, you have banners, you have crests.
And seats. It's not that.
I guess, okay, a lot of lists I've seen, it's inconsistent which lists play seats or not. If you're playing seats, I think it's feasible. If not, I don't like it.
It's a pretty degenerate flyer, and if you're ahead, and even Elysian is, well, often ahead, so it comes naturally. Also, a lot of its dorks don't fly, so give one of them flying. Negate one of their spells. They choose the spell, but it doesn't matter because they're all spells they want to be casting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. You screwed them out of their force power. Now they can't play anything of worse. It's also an all-star in the Elysian Flyers list in Expedition, but that's neither here nor there. That list is not throne-worthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, anyways.
No. Okay, it's getting kind of late here. Are there any other topics we want to do? Or should we,
I think we exhausted them all. We exhausted a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're gonna have to end this without Sunny and Ilya, but we're gonna have to end this without Sunny and Ilya.
Yeah.
Are you familiar enough with the Patreon stuff?
Thanks, guys. I'll take it from here. FECast would not be possible without the generous contributions of our patrons. You can help support FECast at www.patreon.com/friendsofeternal, and if you would like to contribute, we'd really appreciate the help keeping FECast going. Huge shout-outs to Chris Ye, D-Dub, and Yeastout for being patrons of the show, and without them, it wouldn't be possible. Also, be sure to check out the Friends of Eternal Discord, which is where all this discussion that we're talking about takes place. You can find a Discord invite link in the description of this audio or video. And finally, be sure to check out the Piloting Club, a new initiative led by Camomilk, in which we record videos of ourselves playing and then break it down, talking with other members and trying to find ways that we can improve our play. All right, anything you guys would like to say about the Discord? Take it away, Boxer.
Oh, yeah, it's a great community. It's really for everyone, no matter where you are in your stages of playing Eternal. If you're just starting out, if you're an aspiring competitive player, if you're even like, there's a ton of really great people there. There's like a lot of competitive tournament players stop by because of the great community from all sorts of teams as well.
There's plenty of people there to help you out, no matter your skill level, and no matter what you're thinking about in Eternal. Whether it be the Throne meta, the Expedition meta, trying to build up your collection, heck, even beating up Gauntlet sometimes.
Deck for the weekend event.
Yeah, the weekend event decks, too. We have event talks a lot when that comes up. And also the League.
Mm-hmm.
Leagues are pretty fun. They award a card back if you can afford it. It's pretty worth your time. I think that's about it. This has been the FE Podcast, episode 17. I am TempestDragonKing.
I'm TheBoxer.
And we hope you have a good night.
Friends of Eternal is awesome, but you know what's even more awesome? Our amazing patrons over at patreon.com. That's right, Friends of Eternal now has a Patreon where you can help support the content and initiatives of Friends of Eternal. If you enjoy FECast and you enjoy the Piloting Club and you want to join the people that make all this possible and sustainable, be sure to head over to patreon.com/Friends of Eternal and consider donating. Every little bit does help. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time on FECast.